Hi, how you doing? It's Jeff Sinker from SkypeGuitarLessonsOnline.com, bringing you another one of my music theory lessons. And this really is a lesson that was created by a number of questions that I have from some of my students regarding chords and how they can play chords that sound correct. This is what they term as being correct. What really they mean is sounding harmonic, sounding connected, so that they sound melodic whenever they play a guitar line or if they're singing over the top. They also ask me, how can I write simple songs? I've got these ideas for some words, I've got a melody, but I want some chords behind that are simple to play, that make sense. I hear songs on the radio all the time, and they just sound easy to play. This chords sound easy. So they ask me, how do you come up with these chords? How do you learn them? How do you understand what chords work together and what chords don't? So this lesson really is about learning the connection with the chords. And this all relates down to the scale. If we have a scale, there are a series of chords that are created from that scale. And in this lesson, we're going to break it down. We're going to learn what a chord is, understanding how the chords are created from the scale. And we're also going to look at a couple of simple formats or simple uses of the chords that are created from that scale. So, don't go away.
Preview.
So what we're going to do in this lesson is we are going to learn how a chord is formed. And we're going to look in particular, in this first instance, at the G scale. And we're going to learn all the chords that are created or built from the G scale and the notes in the G scale. But first of all, I just want to take you back to some early music theory, this very quickly, so you understand where this whole thing is coming from. And as I said, we are going to be looking at the G scale. And the notes on the G scale are a G, volume, or a G, an A, a B, a C, a D, an E, and an F sharp, and then back to the G. So we've got 7 individual tones. Now the reason we are playing these notes is that a major scale is created of half and whole tone intervals. And the major scale is a root, a whole tone interval, and a half tone, followed by a whole, another whole, and a half. Now I used to call this 2WH, 3WH. It's an easy way for me to remember it when I was starting out, and I still pass that information on to my students. So whenever we think of a major scale, we have got the root note, and then a whole tone, which to us on the guitar, if you don't already know, is 2 frets. So we've got a whole tone given as our A. Another whole tone gives us our B. A half tone, followed by another whole tone, takes us up to D. Another whole tone takes us up to E. Another whole tone, this time pushes us to the F sharp. And then the half tone back to the root, which is the G again. Always remember that it's always a half tone before that root note. And we've always got a half tone after the third. So we've got root, whole, third tone there, half tone, and then we've got 3 more whole tones, followed by that half tone at the end. And that gives us the format for a major scale. And we can use that across any single note in the musical alphabet. So if we was to play this very quickly, we did the C. I've got the C here. I've got root, whole, D, whole, E, half tone, F, whole tone G, whole tone A, whole tone B, half tone C. And And C major doesn't have any sharps or flats, and that's what we played. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So that's how a major scale is built up. That's the intervals. Now it stands to reason that we are going to create our chords then from all of the notes that are in that scale. Because if we do that, then no matter what we're playing in this scale, the chord is always going to have a connection back to that scale because we're using the elements from that scale. So whenever we have created a chord, no matter what part of the scale the chord has been created from, there is always a connection back to that scale. Now a chord is created by a triad. Triad meaning three. And a triad for the chord is from using the first note, the third note, and the fifth note. So if we write all of the notes down of the scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we can build up the triads by just simply taking that idea of the 1, 3, 5, and then moving along each single note in the scale. So if we start off in the G, we have the G, which is the root. We're looking for the third. Well, we know that the B is the third. Then we move up to the fifth, which is the perfect fifth, and that is a D. So the notes that we use to build up our first chord are taken from the 1, 3, 5. That gives us a G major triad. Now, there are four types of triads that we normally use. Now, a triad has got nothing to do with a group of Chinese people. The triad, 3 notes, musical, we have 4 of them. 3 of them are extremely common. The other 2, we don't tend to use them in popular music. They are used, a lot of heavy rock bands will use what we call the diminished triad, and also occasionally we can, especially if you play jazz, you will be playing what we call an augmented triad. But the main ones that we're going to be looking at are the major and the minor triad. Now, a major triad starts off with the root followed by a major third. And the major third is always to us on a guitar is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 frets higher. Then we follow it by the perfect fifth. So we've got B, and that is creating that major triad. A minor triad has a flat third. So to create a flat third, all we do is we just take it back 1 half tone, which to us is 1 fret. So if I wanted to create a minor triad from this G note, I would just play G, go up 3 frets, which would give me my minor third, and then perfect fifth, which is still the D. Minor triad. And you can hear the difference between major triad, got a happy sound, minor triad. So they are the 3 triads that we're going to be building up our chords from. So we've got our first chord, and because it was playing the B, which was a major triad, and then going to the fifth, we know that's a major chord. So, and it really does stand to reason, of course, if we're playing G, we have got a G major chord as our opening chord. But we can see where it comes from. So our G has got this root, major third, and a perfect fifth, which tells us it is a major chord. We have the first chord is G major. Now what we're going to do, we're going to move up to the next note in the scale, which is the A. So we're shifting everything up one. So we have the A as the root. Now we've got to go to the third. Now the third, of course, is shifted up in the scale as well. So before it was going to the B, this time it's going to go to the C, because that's a third up from this A note. And that is C. And the perfect fifth, again moved up, is an E. Now because this interval here between the A and the C is now only 3 frets, what we've got there is a minor third. So what it is telling us is that this is going to be an A minor chord, because it's built off that minor third. So we can now add A minor to the list of chords that we can play over a G major scale. Let's move up another. We go to the B. We have got to go now up to the third, which again is pushed up in the scale from the C, so it goes to the next note in the scale, which is the D. And then we go to the fifth, which is the F sharp. And again, what we see is between the B and the D is only 3 frets, so that is a minor third. So we have got a minor chord, and that is B minor. Let's move up to the next one. I'm sure you're beginning to understand how the principle works, but we're going to quickly go through each one. Next one is C. So from the C, the third note up from that is the E. And already what we've now got is that bigger stretch. We've got these 4 frets, so we've got a major third here, and the fifth is going to the G. So we have a C major chord. Move up to the next note, D. We go from D to the F sharp, and again we have 4 frets, and we have the A. So it is a D major chord. So let's move up to the next note, the 6th note, which is the E. The third up from there is the G, and then we have the B for the 5th. And because we've got this minor third, because it's only 3 frets between the E and the G, we have a minor chord, E minor. Next one up, now this is the odd one out. I said the most common ones are major and minor triads. This one is slightly different. Let's just kind of go through it. Let's see where it's different. We have F sharp, and then we're going to the A, which is the next note up, minor third. The next note we're going to pull in is this C. Now, up until this point, what we had when we created these triads was we started with the distance between the root and the third. Now, if we look, go back quickly to the G, we had G to the B. That was 4 frets. Now, I always played the D here, but if we keep it on the same string so you can see this, the next note was the D. The distance between the B and the D is 3 frets, which is a minor third. So this major chord was built from a major third, and then from the third note to the 5th, that was a minor third interval. Now we're going to look at the A. Remember what we've just done on that major chord? We go from the A. We went from A to C, that was a minor third. The next note up was the E, which is here on the 12th fret. Now that is a major third. And that is important to remember, that these triads that we have are created, a major is created from a major third, followed by a minor third. That's your 1, 3, 5, they are the 2 intervals that we have. And a minor is created from a minor third to a major third. So whenever we start to look at a chord, if we see a minor third, or we see a minor third, we would expect the next interval to be a major third, and that would give us a minor chord. That's what we would expect. Now, when we come up to this F sharp, the first one was F sharp to the A. That was a minor third. So now we would expect the next one to be a major third, which would actually give us a C sharp. Well, it can't be a C sharp because there's no C sharp in G. So we have to go back to this C note. Now, from that note, the A to the C, and you can see it probably better here, A to the C is just 3 frets. So we have a chord that has got 2 minor thirds in it. Root to a flat third, and then from the flat third going out to this flat fifth. So that has created 2 minor intervals, which is different to the normal. What we say in music is that the 5th note has been flattened. And when we flatten a note, a word that you probably haven't heard it too often in musical terms, is we've diminished a note. So what they say is on this 7th note, we have created a diminished chord. And it's got an unusual sound, and that's why we don't tend to play it too often. So the chords that we will focus on are chords between the 1 and the 6th note. Just understand that the 7th is there, but it does create this diminished chord. So now we've got all of our chords. We've got a G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, and the E minor. Now we number these chords according to whether they be a major or a minor. And the way we do it, and you've probably seen this written down in music, is that a major chord is written down as a Roman numeral capital letter. So you've got that old style one that was like an I. Minor chords are written in Roman numerals but in italics, so we get these little I's. So we would see the major chord, the 1 chord in bold, the 2 and the 3 are in italics, the 4 chord, which is 1, 5, Roman numeral, is a major chord. The 5 chord, written as the V, is a major, and then the 6 chord is a minor. Now, every one of them chords, because they are built from scale notes, will sound correct when we play over a melody of G. So if you've written something in G major, you can apply all selection of them chords behind that melody. And it starts to make things sound interesting, and it's what we call we sound harmonic. We have got harmony behind the melody. And because we change our chords, or if you decide to change your chords, the intervals between the notes will sound different as we move. And if you're unsure what I mean by intervals, I've got a link below that takes you to one of my lessons that talks about intervals. But each one of them will change. The sound of a certain note against a G chord will sound different against an A. And that's what starts to make things sound very, very interesting. Of course, now you've got these chords, we can start to use them to create interesting songs, and that's what songwriters do. Especially when you think of chart hits. Chart hits have got to sound very easy on the mind when we're listening to them. So the majority of songwriters use the chords from one scale. It's only when you start getting into kind of elements of rock, fusion and jazz where they start to change the way the chords react to each other. But in the most part, popular music is written on popular chord structures, which really do lend to just using a major scale and just using the chords that are available in that major scale. And we can see examples of that all the time. If we was to think of a lot of Ed Sheeran songs, if you was to write down the various chords created from the keys and then looked at an Ed Sheeran song, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Ed Sheeran, You know, the money he makes and the quality of music he makes doesn't matter. It's not about being so totally different. It's about just writing great songs, and Ed Sheeran does write great songs. But they are easy to work out because he does keep to just a standard basic format. If we take an example very quickly of the last song that he brought out, which was Castle on the Hill, that was written in the key of D. So the chords that we've got in the D are D major, which is the 1 chord. We have got an F minor, so we've got an E minor. We have got an F sharp minor. We have a G. We have an A. And we also have a B minor. I've run out of space here. We do have the C sharp diminished, but I said pop music, we don't tend to use that. Now, the chords that he uses in Castle on the Hill start off with this, you have this D to a G, B minor, A, D. So he's using the 1 chord, he's going across to the 4 chord, the major, going to the 6 chord, the B minor, and then he's going to the 5 chord, the A. And that is a very, very popular format for writing songs, is to use the 1 chord, going to the 4 chord, going to the 6 chord, and going to the 5 chord. And the other example was the one I opened up the lesson with, which sounds very similar to me about Benny King, but that format again was used heavily in the 60s and the 70s, where we're using the G, and then we're going across to the E minor, which is the 6 chord, 6 minor chord, going to the 4 chord, which is the C, and going to the 5 chord. Of course, it's entirely up to you what chords you want to use. You have got your selection of chords there now, and you can use any one of them that you want. So that's what songwriting's about, and also using them if you've got a melody that you've written that's just using just entirely notes of the G scale. You can just change the chords behind it. You start off with a G if you want. A B minor, and go to the 3 chord. And you just move them around. Experiment with them. But they will all sound harmonically connected to each other. They will work together. So it makes it, when you're playing chords, that you just sound correct. Hope it's been informative. I do hope you've learned something from this. Hope it explains questions that you've had in the past. But until the next time, this is Jeff Sinker from SkypeGuitarLessonsOnline.com, thanking you for your company. It's been great, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Until then, goodbye.